A big old air filter, we make our own ductwork, and who's this guy? This week on Blue Collar Woodworking. We've been working on our wooden rocket ship for a while now, and it's almost ready to launch. Yes, I called it a wooden rocket ship. And not just because you guys have been sending emails telling me that the big wooden Cyclone looks like a Saturn V on the launch pad. I'm calling it a rocket ship because inside that sweet piney exterior is a state-of-the-art dust collection system that you can make yourself. So, I hope you've been paying attention. And if you're paying attention right now, you're probably wondering who the guy is behind Roy Underhill's mustache. Well, if you know anything about the high-octane, thrill-a-minute scroll saw and wood-turning network, you know this guy is Mustache Mike. What you may not know is that he's one of the guys that's behind the scenes here at Blue Collar Woodworking. Does this sound familiar?
Stumpy's cyclone design is based on the careful research of dust collection guru Bill Pentz.
Yes, this is the guy behind that sweet, soothing voice you've often heard on our show and on a once popular breakdancing video from the 80s that I promised him I wouldn't mention. So say hello, Mike.
Hello, Mike.
Well, besides being a comedian, Mike also does quality control here at the Stumpy Nubs Workshop. So he knows this dust collection project like I know the back of my hand. And I never noticed. Should I get that checked out? I'm going to go get this checked out while he fills you in.
Don't mind if I do. The dictionary defines dust collection basically as the act of collecting dust. With that in mind, Stumpy set out to build the world's most effective homemade cyclone, made almost entirely from wood, but based on the innovative design of dust collection guru Bill Pentz. So he started with a wooden cone made from plywood rings and a segmented barrel top, and the design has started to come together like a well-planned picnic on a warm spring day. In the last two episodes you saw how we made the cone and the barrel, but you never got to see what was on the inside.
I don't know what it was, but the dog licked it off, so if it doesn't hurt him, it doesn't hurt me. Did you tell him about the lining inside?
No, I was just about to. What you want, of course, is a really smooth surface on the inside of your cyclone. And the easiest way to get it is to add, of course, some sort of lining. It has to be durable enough because it's going to be constantly sandblasted by the dust during use, but be flexible enough to form really the tight radius at the cone's bottom. Now, believe it or not, Stumpy found the solution in the clearance section of Home Depot, some countertop laminate. That and a little construction adhesive, and you've got an airtight liner that will withstand a ton of use.
The lining was my genius idea, but the other features of this dust collector that makes it so great, they're based on a little thing called physics. You see, Einstein taught us that airflow is equal to mass plus something else times the velocity of dust squared. To the layman, well, just go look at Bill Pentz's website. He has all those calculations there. But I'm going to bottom line it for you, make it a little less mathematic-y. Bill built a cyclone, tested it, tore it apart, built it again. He did it like 100 times until he came up with two critical changes. These features are easiest to see in this acrylic model that was sent to us by Clear Vue Cyclones. Clear Vue is the only company that makes cyclones based on this design that we're using in our wooden cyclone. Now, Mike is going to use this to show you what those features are.
The first thing he did was he made changes right here at the inlet. Instead of stopping it right here when it comes into the cylinder, he extended it farther in and angled it downward. Then he added an internal ramp that wraps really all around the outlet of the center. Together, these two unique features force that fine dust downward, increases the blower's efficiency, and dramatically extends the filter life.
Well, you seem to know what you're doing, so I'll be in my trailer if anybody needs me.
Owen, Paul Moore from up here in northern Canada. Thought I'd show you fellas how we do some turning up here in Canada. You kind of got to have a little bit of a imagination up here in Canada. Not everybody has a lathe, so we're using our crossover vehicle right here. She's about 100 horsepower. You need a faithful assistant right here. It's my faithful assistant, Ethan. And you need to do a little welding. You got, by the way, you got to make sure you take your tire off. You got to do a little welding and hook yourself all up and bolt yourself on a block of wood right onto the outside of the rim of that there tire. I did want to tell you a couple of the advantages of our crossover lathe here. She's the only lathe I know that's got a swivel head. See that there? You can just put that piece of wood just exactly where you want her. She's also a variable speed. She's got plenty of horsepower. One other thing I'd like to mention. You may not want your wife to be at home when you're doing this because she doesn't like her son to go to meet in vehicle using it as a lathe, okay? Now, I want to show you a couple of the tools I'm going to use here. This is a Canadian special right here. You can see this is a lathe tool right here. And we got our beaver tail handle on there. She's a custom job. This is about a 1-inch gouge right here. And this fellow over here is what really does the work. This is about a 2-inch gouge. A 2-inch turner right here. And we're going to just put this baby in gear and see if we can make some chips and see if we can make a bowl out of this here block of wood. You ready, your faithful assistant? Sure. Let her go. She puts off some pretty fine chips. So we'll just finish this baby up. Yeah, we're just finishing up our bowl here. You can see she's starting to smooth right out. She's a little dusty here. I'm using my roto rasp here on that grinder and throwing a lot of dust, but we're finishing her right up. We'll be done here in a few minutes, and you'll be able to see this bowl at any of the woodworking shows you attend this year. Thanks very much.
Here's a tip for all you woodworkers out there. It's called duct work. Don't go into the hardware and ask for ductwork. It's just going to lead to an embarrassing situation, especially if there's a real duck on the premises.
What Stumpy's trying to say is a good dust collection system requires, of course, good ductwork. Now, 4-inch PVC is a standard in a home workshop, and it works well for chip collection. But if you're going to collect all of this, you need to get a lot more airflow than you can pull through a standard ductwork. How much of this do you want to breathe? You need to have an expensive upgrade.
That's a problem for a lot of woodworkers. Upgrading to 6-inch PVC pipe is expensive enough, but have you seen what they charge for these fittings? It's outrageous. The stuff is sewer pipe. I mean, I don't need my chips going through $1,000 worth of T's and elbows, and my sawdust doesn't have to either. So I'm doing what I do best. I'm making my own out of some wood scraps, a little duct tape, and a fine woodworker's secret weapon, construction adhesive.
Want to impress your friends? Then just go to stumpynubs.com and click on the tab that says Stumpy Store. There you'll find plans for many of the projects you see on Blue Collar Woodworking, and you can help support the show.
Guys, I'm going to show you a trick that I use all the time. And it's one of those things, particularly in nice high-end furniture, that you see it without seeing it. What I do with all of my rails, this rail for this door came right off the right side, came right off of this face frame piece. Same thing with the left. Only thing's missing here is my saw curve. Now, with that said, one of the things is that when you're processing your door material, when you're processing your face frame, you want to process your door material to the same thickness. Because one of the things that denotes a really nice raised panel is that the raised panel sets out beyond your rails and stiles. You can always tell a commercial made panel because most of the time the raised panel is flush with the rail and stile. And that's because they slap them together, put them through a big belt sander, drum sander, whatever it is, and sand everything flat. So when you're shopping and picking your wood, think about that.
All right, while we were away, Mike was dragging himself through all the cobwebs in the crawl space to confirm my suspicion. Square ducts are everywhere. Your house is probably full of them. If they're good enough to blow warm air into your house, why aren't they good enough to suck dusty air out of your workshop?
Actually, the reason why square ducts are generally not used is this right here. Because of the square corner, dust can not only affect the drag, but it can build up, and there's a potential even for a fire hazard.
Mr. Smarty Pants here has a point. But what if we could make them what if we can make them shaped like an octagon? That means no corners to create drag. And what if we can make them out of inexpensive, lightweight, wood-like materials? You may call that idea stupid, but I say stupid like a fox. So here's what I came up with. Now this might look like a couple of big brown rectangles, but I never would have made it through 6th grade if my mother wouldn't have taught me that it's what's on the inside that counts. And what's inside these rectangles are 4 triangles. And what do you get when you combine 4 triangles with a rectangle? Ductwork. What am I talking to myself here?
What the outer shell was made of in our project was 1/8 hardboard, of course with a smooth side in. Now the inner frame is a 2x4 ripped into 4 triangle strips. And not only do these strips add strength, but remember we talked about drag in the corner of a square duct? These reduce that from 90 degrees and really reduce the potential for a dust buildup in the ductwork.
What this also can be applied to is all kinds of things like fittings. Here we made our own 45-degree Ys. We can make blast gates and reducers, whatever you want. And this is where you really start to save your money. I made a couple dozen of these things in, 2 days. And if you figure $20 a piece as some of these fittings cost, well, that's a lot more than I pay people around here. So if it's the expense of the ductwork upgrade that's keeping you from doing it, this is an option worth looking into.
Now, of course, 6-inch ducts are only advisable if you have a dust collector to keep those mains clear, i.e. enough suction.
But what if upgrading your dust collector isn't in your budget? Well, we've got another way to filter the dust from the air before it gets to your lungs, and I'm not talking about growing a mustache. But first, you're going to have to watch this segment. My favorite car is the Dodge Avenger. Sure, I run errands, but occasionally I want to get out and find my brother's killer.
Find everybody's favorite fat little woodworker on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, and read his hilarious weekly woodworking blog at stumpynubs.com. Ceiling-mounted air filters obviously cost a lot of money, and most of them still don't collect the finest of the dust particles. For instance, the $330 Icon system captures just 85% of 1 micron particles. For another $50, Jet captures 89%. How much of that do you want to breathe? That's not even as good as many modern furnace filters.
$400? Are you kidding me? That's got to be one of the worst purchases since the days of the Vikings when General Olaf the Hairy ordered 10,000 battle helmets with the horns on the inside. I'm not falling for it. That's what these babies here are all about. I'm going to take a couple of furnace filters, an old blower, a little bit of wood, and I'm going to make one of my own. Going to be that simple? Yes, it is. And no, it isn't. But these are some pretty technically details, so I'm going to let Mike bore you with them while I try to look interested.
You get good used furnace blowers from a lot of sources, heating and cooling contractors, when they upgrade, junkyards, even local landfill. But make sure it's in good working order. Motor needs to be in good shape, bearings. You don't want to start a fire. This one here had a 3-wire system for 3 speeds. That's cool. MERV ratings are everything. What's a MERV rating? It's a rating of how much particulate matter a filter will stop. You want to get down to at least a 0.5 micron, so you're going to need something in the 10 or 11 MERV size.
Mike may want you to believe that it's all about MERV ratings, but it's also about airflow. That's why you should put filters on 2 sides instead of just 1. This is going to draw more air from your shop. And it's important to put cheap filters on the outside, so only the finest dust makes it through to your good filters. Those are expensive, you want them to last. Now, once you find your blowers and your filters, that's when you build a box to match. Don't build the box first and then try to find filters. You're smarter than that. Of course, I'm not really smarter than that, which is why my blower won't fit in this box, and I'm going to have to make some modifications. One more thing about the filter. A lot of guys think you mount it on the ceiling above the bench you use most. If you're one of those guys, it must be very embarrassing for you, because that doesn't make any sense at all. I mean, why would you want a big vacuum over your head sucking that dust right up past your face? Now, if I was meant to inhale all that dust, I wouldn't have been born with all this nose hair. You want to circulate air throughout the entire shop. So I'm going to mount mine in the center of the wall up by the ceiling. And then I'm going to angle it down a little bit. That way it's going to pull air from all the way around the shop and it's going to shoot it out towards the floor, giving us good circulation. And another benefit is in the wintertime when all that warm air hugs up by the ceiling, it's going to circulate that through the shop, which is going to save me on my heating bills. Building it out of plywood and a furnace blower is going to save me the $300 or $400 of buying it in the store. That money can be applied to hiring guys like Mike to be on the show. And I think he did a pretty good job. So, say goodbye, Mike.
Bye, Mike.
That never gets old. Well, it's Groundhog's Day. Again. I have to tell you, I don't get it. I mean, people gather to scare at a fat squirrel who wants nothing more than just be left alone. They drag him out of his hole, look for a shadow. I don't know. We have some dumb traditions, but this one has really gotten out of control. How would you like it if someone grabbed you by your fat rolls and drugged you out into the snow? Last time that happened to me, someone went home without their teeth. Pugs Tony Phil didn't see a shadow today, which they tell us means, I don't know, an early spring. What they don't tell you is that they woke him up at 6 a.m. It was still dark at 6 a.m. Of course he's not going to see a shadow. It's ridiculous. To prove my point, I started a new tradition here at the Stumpy Nubs Workshop. What we do now is I get up around noon, I strip Randy down to his skivvies, and I shove him out into a snowbank behind the shop. I don't ask him about a shadow, because I don't care. Spring will come when it gets here. Trying to predict the weather is a lost cause. The weatherman here in Michigan would be much more accurate if they leave the fancy equipment alone and just stick their head out the window, which is what I do now. I'm going to stick my head out the window. I'm going to ask Randy what the weather's like, and if he's not shivering, then I know it's time to let him in and we can have a cold one, because we've earned it, my friends. Especially if there's a real duck on the premises.
I don't know what to say because it hasn't come up yet. That's what I was waiting for before.
Okay.